The Acolyte, Episode 3 is here, and the reaction is about what you would expect. So break out the adult beverages and the tampons, because this is the best not Star Wars to date.
We were hunted, persecuted, forced into hiding.
Or as Forbes magazine has just called it, one of the worst Star Wars episodes ever made.
We were on the brink of extinction.
Or perhaps, even more appropriately, an embarrassment to the entire franchise.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Good job, Disney. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many watching this video not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias. And of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. Make sure to join us every Sunday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon, especially today for the live show. Well, it was nearly 13 years ago that Disney shareholders were given a song and dance by CEO Bob Iger, saying that once again they were going back to the intellectual property capital investment well by wanting to get more property that would appeal to boys. This time, it was Lucasfilm, mainly for Star Wars, just as Bob Iger had done a few years earlier by purchasing Marvel. And that $4 billion capital investment included things like Industrial Lights and Magic and Skywalker Sound, but Star Wars was the big ticket item. Disney had been a dominant player in what was traditionally a female-branded marketer, merchandise that was well aimed at girls, things like the Disney Princess line. Think of all the resurgence in the 90s with characters like Ariel from The Little Mermaid, or Belle from Beauty and the Beast, Jasmine from Aladdin. But apart from one-hit wonders from things like Cars from Pixar, Disney was never able to build a firm reputation with the boys out there, and things like Marvel and Star Wars especially were supposed to get Disney into that market. But lo and behold, Kathleen Kennedy, who was put on as the president of Lucasfilm following the sale from George Lucas, well, she had different plans. The Force was going female. I think we all remember the famous image of Kathleen Kennedy wearing the t-shirt with some of her friends, and that came to the big screen in the form of Rey, later known as Rey Palpatine. And it wasn't just a matter of giving us a female-led new brand of Star Wars. It was also the absolute denigration and destruction of the male heroes that had built what even today Kathleen still knows as a male-dominated audience, namely Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. But even knowing that there was going to be a female-led Star Wars, guess what? The guys still showed up, because there'd been nothing from Star Wars in nearly 12 or 13 years at that point. And $2 billion later, it was one of the biggest successes at the box office, even considering the massive $560 million the Walt Disney Company spent to finish production on this film. That was before they spent a dime on marketing. But we all know what happened after that. The grosses went down precipitously to the next film, The Last Jedi, and even more still to The Rise of Skywalker, even with ticket price inflation that should have been holding things relatively steady if the audience had just been happy. Clearly, they were not. And that doesn't even include the other movies like Rogue One or the box office flop that was Solo. Actually, if you collectively put all 5 of the films together, Disney spent over $2 billion to shoot and produce all those films. And that doesn't even include another nearly $1 billion they would have spent in global marketing to get them into theaters. Now, if you're curious about where those numbers come from, check out a video I did not long ago called Star Wars, How Much It Really Cost. We'll leave a link to that video in the description of this one. Even after realizing that the audience was not going along with the Force is female idea from Kathleen Kennedy and Disney Lucasfilm, they seem to persist in it nonetheless. Now, we did get a breath of fresh air with things like The Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2 on Disney+, especially when Luke Skywalker, the real Luke Skywalker, showed up at the end of Mando Season 2. It was, quite frankly, by far and away the biggest moment that Disney Star Wars had. That 5 minutes in that final episode did more to reinvigorate a sleeping and, frankly, dying multi-billion-dollar fan base than anything Disney had put into theaters to that point. But then Disney couldn't help itself and continued to go down the strong female lead role in a franchise that, once again, was deliberately purchased for $4 billion for the boys. The Book of Boba Fett basically destroyed Boba Fett and put the female character Fennec Shand in the lead position, at least the one that was the strongest leader in the show itself. That, of course, was while Boba Fett was napping most of the time in the Bacta tank. But even Season 3 of The Mandalorian wasn't immune, as we got Mando replaced with another strong female character that the show, or at least that season, was much more about, and that was Bo-Katan, another Dave Filoni character. One thing that was consistent, of course, was Lucasfilm, Disney, and the small parcel of new Star Wars fans that they had seemingly found was that they were blaming the old fans for not showing up and enjoying the garbage that they were pumping out. And even watching merchandise sales fall apart for anything that wasn't branded under Disney's own financial statements as classic Star Wars, that is the George Lucas brand of Star Wars, not the Star Wars merchandise that would have come from the Disney Star Wars movies, let's say, or the Disney Star Wars Disney Plus shows. Now, that was just, that's just a minor issue. We don't need to worry about that. But in the New York Times, even recently, as we mentioned before, we got some tidbits about a new show that was coming to Disney Plus. Debuting on June 4th, costing roughly $180 million for 8 episodes, taking 4 years to make, it attempts 2 feats at once, pleasing old school Star Wars fans, notice how they put us in quotes there, who can seem unpleasable, while telling an entirely new story, one that requires no prior knowledge of Star Wars and that showcases women and people of color. I'm not sure what showcasing women and people of color have to do with the quality of your storytelling, but if you want to do that, that's fine. And if you're trying to please those classic Star Wars fans that seem unpleasable, okay, great, we'll give it a shot. What you got?
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Yep, I think you missed the mark. Kathleen Kennedy says that operating within these giant franchises with social media and the level of expectation is terrifying. I think Leslie struggled with it a little bit. I think a lot more of the women who step into Star Wars struggle with this a bit more because of the fan base being so male-dominated. They sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal. And it's funny, everybody else seems to know the same thing, including Parrot Analytics of all places. Just take a look at the chart here that Parrot has put together between Star Wars and Marvel. For Pete's sake, the red and yellow dots on the graph are very skewed to the right, meaning it's a much higher male audience that does tend to skew older. So what then was the answer from Kathleen Kennedy and Disney Lucasfilm for this? What then were they going to do to bring the clearly older and male-dominated audience they spent $4 billion to get their hands on?
I told you this planet would be a safe haven for our coven.
Pay attention.
Stop distracting me.
Let go of me! You let go of me! I don't want to do the Ascension. But that's how we become witches.
The galaxy is not a place that welcomes women like us.
How many spice creams are you gonna eat tonight? I share everything with you. And you hide things from me or run off alone.
Now, at this point, you'd be forgiven for wondering, what in the hell am I watching? But I swear to you, it's actually Disney Star Wars The Acolyte.
We were on the brink of extinction. The gift of life.
Oh, no, seriously, this is really Disney Star Wars now.
The The power of
It seems the rumors about a lesbian coven of witches that are Force users or whatever were true. And it gets even goofier because then the Jedi show up, as Alan Ing referred to in this show, treated like they're child protective services running around the galaxy to steal children, or at least that's kind of the way it's presented. The Jedi say that they have a right to test the children. Now, of course, if they test the children and they turn out to be positive candidates for the Jedi Academy, then they have a right to take them away, because that's where we are now. Following that is a scene where the two leaders of the Witch Coven have a conversation and something stunning is revealed.
I carried them.
I created them.
So the leader of the Witch Coven created a baby with the thread, or I guess the Force, and impregnated that into the other Witch Coven leader. I guess they used the Force as an artificial insemination device, which I guess technically in this case would make the Force a guy. Eventually, by the end of the show, the good twin and the evil twin get separated, and the evil twin starts a fire in the village and burns the whole damn thing down and kills everybody. But honestly, who cares, because the show doesn't matter. It's just stupid and poorly written. That being said, it does nothing to explain away the guilt trip that Master Torben felt so much of that in episode 2, the one from last week, that he drank poison and offed himself. Maybe they'll explain that one, but somehow I doubt it, because I don't think the writing in this show is that smart. The real business and financial issue of this show is that, again, Disney and Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and seemingly everybody else recognizing that even 12, 13 years after Disney has purchased Star Wars and has labored nearly endlessly to turn this into a female brand for some inexplicable reason, it's just still not working, number one. And number two, they seem to want to persist going down this road, erasing masculinity, erasing men from being even necessary to create babies, in this case, anymore in a galaxy far, far away, as they continue to just chip away and insult the audiences, whatever there are left of them. But back to Eric Kane at Forbes magazine, who says, this entire episode is a bad joke. We learn that Mae and Osha lived with their mothers in a society of witches, all of whom are female. It appears they were conceived using the Force, or something. Force-using witches are also apparently frowned upon in the galaxy. They call the Force the thread. I'm getting dark side vibes here, though I'm also getting the sense this show will try to be all edgy and make the Jedi out to be the bad guys, which we've seen play out about a half a dozen times at this point. And yeah, I agree, that's probably exactly where this show is going, to pick and chip away at the Jedi themselves. Because patriarchy bad, y'all. What a disaster, Eric Kane says at Forbes, and then offers a few scattered thoughts, as he calls them. This show had something like $180 million for its budget, and I can't for the life of me tell where any of it is gone. Every world feels small. Every set feels claustrophobic. There's no sense of scale or variety. It's all so relentlessly generic. But hey, lightsabers. And I agree with you, Eric, and Forbes magazine. I think you've hit the nail on the head with that one. And that's what we keep asking here from the business side. I know there's a lot of channels out there going point by point on this episode, tearing it apart. And I promise you, we are going to do that on the live show Wednesday, today, as you're watching this video, on the day it comes out. So make sure you're here for that one, because there's a lot more to cover in detail on this, and we'll have a great panel of guests to do so. But for right now, for this video, this is for the investors, the Wall Streeters, the Disney stockholders out there, and yes, even the fans too. At what point are you going to push back on Disney for producing such absolute abject crap like this? $180 million to $200 million is something that Warner Brothers spends on things like House of the Dragon, or Netflix would spend on a solid season of Stranger Things, shows that seem to come out much better, vastly higher production value. The acting, the writing, the directing, all orders of magnitude superior to pretty much anything that the Walt Disney Company is putting out right now, not to mention the cinematography and the overall look and feel of the shows themselves. Somehow Disney keeps setting money ablaze to do these kind of things with frankly mediocre at best results, and it's time to start demanding some damn answers. That doesn't even begin to address the question of why Disney continues to allow this persistence of insulting the very people they depend upon to drive their revenues and profit margins. It is frankly complete corporate insanity. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.